Eventually, my time came. And I got that phone call, and I had a biopsy this time, and it was breast cancer. And as you could imagine, it just turned my world upside down. It was the thing I had feared for 2 decades practically. And here it was in front of me, on my lap, in my ear, on my phone call. And I had to make some powerful choices. And it brought up all my grief from my mother. It brought up all of the fears that I had, kind of trying to avoid. And I decided to rewrite my own story and choose different paths than my mother did to hopefully have a different outcome. And so far, so good. But I think, breast cancer has been a part of my life now for many, many years. I'm really glad I made some of the decisions that were different from my mother's. I use it as a way to honor her legacy and to honor kind of her journey. I've also then made a commitment to share what I've learned with other women and try and make a change and a difference for them too.
I'm Candace Rodarty. This is Gratitude Geek, the podcast where we discuss how gratitude is a business strategy and you can build a strong, successful solopreneur business, building genuine, lasting connections with clients, colleagues, and community. This is the first week of October, and October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And as you know, I have been living with metastatic breast cancer for 11 years, almost 12 years now. And so I am going to spend the entire month of October through podcast episodes and blog posts highlighting guests and stories around breast cancer thrivers who are also amazing business people. This week, we are talking to Erica Neubert Campbell, an award-winning writer and breast cancer survivor who turned her double mastectomy into a story of gratitude, mindset shifts, and authentic healing. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you so much, Candace. It's an honor to be here. And you are a thriver and an inspiration, and I'm extremely grateful to be here.
Well, thank you. So we met through Podmatch. One of the things that I like to highlight in my episodes, because it's about connection, is how I meet people. So Podmatch is a really groovy tool that allows people with a great story to pitch themselves to podcasters and say, hey, I want to be a guest on your show. So that is how you and I connected. There you go.
And I loved the name of your show, obviously the purpose, but gratitude is an incredibly powerful value in my life. And I'm kind of geeky myself. So I thought the combination of the two was going to be fantastic.
I love it. I love it. Those are two words that mean so much. And I created the name Gratitude Geek because of the alliteration, but it took me a couple of years before I stepped into actually owning it. Yeah, so that's a story in itself. Anyway, all right, rapid fire questions. Coffee or tea?
Coffee every day, all day. It has to be that way. It's vanilla coffee. And also, here, I've got mine here. And I also drink it with a block of cheese every day. So that's kind of my weird quirk.
Wait, hold on a minute. You put cheese in your coffee?
No. On the side. Like I'll have a sip of coffee and a bite of white Tillamook cheese. The weirdest thing, but it's so addictive. Highly recommend it.
Interesting. I love cheese. It's the white sharp cheddar?
Yes, white sharp cheddar, like the small, like individually wrapped size Tillamooks.
Interesting.
Go out and get it right now, everybody.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I've heard of butter in coffee, but never cheese in coffee. However, cheese and coffee taste good.
It's going to sweep the nation. Sweep the nation.
We're going to start a trend. All right. So what is one book that changed your perspective?
Well, of course, I'd like to say my own. But the one that I keep coming back to is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And it's just really about how do you change your life, but in incremental ways, small changes and consistency. So I just lean in a lot into consistency these days. And I think about, James Clear talks about how you can get 1% better every day. By the end of the year, you'll be 365% better. And 1% just feels more manageable. Frankly, it's how I wrote my book. I made a commitment that I would at least write one sentence a day. And some days I genuinely only wrote one sentence, like legitimately. Sometimes I wrote more, but it was the consistency that really pushed it over the edge. So I credit that book to being kind of a game changer.
It's a good one. It's in my playlist and I come back to it when I need it. It's one of those books that gets re-listened to.
Yeah.
Because I read with my ears.
Yeah.
So in August and September, I did a squats and sit-ups challenge. Part of the challenge was actually posting to Instagram every day that I did it. And I had some friends that were in the challenge with me. But, just that little number one, the accountability, but number two, doing it every day. I got stronger every day. I got better and better every day, you know?
Yes. Yeah. One of the people that I'm most inspired by too is a guy named Josh Sundquist. He talks about one more thing, one more time.
Mm,
It's just, and it's the power of just one. And that's
yeah.
also what James Clear talks about in his book too.
Oh, I love that idea. One more thing, one more time. That's fantastic. That is a really good way to motivate yourself to keep going. Oh, I have two more rapid fire questions, but we're here now. I remember, so I was in my early 20s, and a bunch of us got into a van and went somewhere together. And the details are so murky right now. But I remember one of the executives that went on this trip with us. I guess it was a day trip. One of the executives that went on this day trip with us, while we were waiting to get in the car, all of us were talking and he was on the phone. Because he had 5 minutes, he took care of something that would take him 5 minutes to take care of. And that's a lesson that
Yeah.
many of us, I mean, I'm trying to be very anti-hustle, right? I'm trying not
Yeah.
to live this hustle life, but that's not hustle. That's using your time wisely. So instead of
Mm,
wasting time, he took care of something that would only take him 5 minutes to take care of,
yeah.
right? In the pocket of time that he had, which is one more thing,
One more time.
one more
Yeah.
time. So, okay, we so got off track with the rapid fire, but here we go. So do you have a gratitude practice, and do you do it in the morning or the evening?
I would say yes, 110% and both. It started actually the most powerful one and the most consistent one, again, to our last part of our rapid fire questions, is every night before bed, I write 5 things I'm grateful for, literally in a journal. I'm grateful for dot, dot, dot. I'm grateful for 5 things and 5 things I felt during the day. So, I felt joy during this conversation with Candace, or, I felt sadness hearing about some tragedies in the world, those kinds of things. And then 5 things I learned, and then 3 things I look forward to tomorrow. And I have been doing that consistently. And so it's like, it does not take a long time, right? To your point, it like probably takes me less than 5 minutes. And I've been doing that consistently for about 3.5 years every night. And it's now to the point I can't fall asleep unless I do that practice. And if I've forgotten my journal, like I've traveled and I've forgotten, I will write it on the back of an envelope. I will write it on the back of a paper towel. I did do that once. But it's just that I find that it's just so grounding. No matter what, you can find gratitude in a day, but the consistency adds up over time. And it was a practice recommended to me by a friend. I would say it's profoundly changed my life in the last 3.5 years.
That is a fantastic gratitude practice. And my favorite part of it is 3 things I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And not to get into it, but if somebody wants a copy of that journal template, I actually have a free download on my website of that exactly one-page template. You can print it out. It's one page. You can print out 40 of them, or just use your own journal. But you can see what mine looks like. There's an actual picture of one of my journal pages, and get it just a free download. So ericaneubertcampbell.com. Go check it out.
That's one of those, once you have the prompt, it's like, I'm calling it a prompt because that's the word that we all call it. But once you have the prompt and you get in the habit, you really don't need to use someone else's journal. You can just use any book. Or,
Exactly.
my personal preference is steno pads.
Yes. Ooh, I like steno pads too. Actually, the size of a steno pad is perfect for what I just described.
Mm-hmm.
And they're
Mm-hmm.
one sentence. I don't write paragraphs. I write one sentence. I'm grateful for my time with Candace today. I'm grateful for the fact that I, have a bed. You can be anything.
And you know what? People think that those little trivial things, I can't think of anything, so I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head and that my husband made me dinner. You can say those every day, because the more you appreciate, the more you find to appreciate.
Yes.
And eventually you're going to move past, I'm grateful my husband made me dinner,
Yeah.
right? You're going to move past it. That's the beauty of gratitude, is that it's like throwing a rock in a pond. It just ripples
Ripples.
and you start to appreciate it more.
Yeah.
All right. This rapid fire thing didn't go as rapidly
Yeah, I
as
know.
I thought it was going
You
to go.
said you weren't into the hustle, right? Yeah.
I'm not into hustle. So the song that instantly lifts your mood.
It's kind of a unique one. I Am Light by India Are. And if you've ever listened to it, it's almost like it's like a singing meditation. I mean, you don't have to sing, but it's a very grounding song. I find it incredibly peaceful, beautiful. And again, I Am Light by India Ari. Kind of off the beaten path, but it's a great song.
Maybe I should create a Spotify playlist of all of these mood lifting songs that my guests recommend.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. I might be adding that question permanently into the rotation.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right, Erica. The audience needs to know your breast cancer story. So tell the audience what you want them to know about you.
Well, I would say I feel like I've lived two lives. I would call them maybe pre breast cancer in my life and post. And my story starts with my mother. To make a very long story short, she was diagnosed with an early stage breast cancer. She relapsed 4 times and ultimately passed away from this terrible disease. And I walked beside her the entire time. I spent long nights and overnights in the hospital with her. My favorite memory is, spending the night in the hospital in the twin bed with her because I would refuse to leave. Not exactly a rule follower, but talk about gratitude. I'm grateful for that time. I'm not grateful for the experience and the reason we had to be there, but I'm grateful for the connection and the time that I got to spend with her before she passed away. With that, I saw the highs and the lows and everything in between in her journey. And as you could imagine, it changed me. And it also developed, frankly, a fear for myself. I personally was extremely concerned that I would get breast cancer next. And when she died, I was 29 years old. And I began to advocate for myself to get early mammograms and early screening because to be honest, I had so much fear. And I'm, again, grateful I did. For many years, I was fine, but I started to have mammograms that I would describe as like scary, where they thought they saw something. You need to come back, Erica. Let's get you an MRI. We see these calcifications. How about an ultrasound? This went on, Candace, for years. Years. And the anxiety every time I got a mammogram or every time I got called back, and I always got called back, it brought me to a breaking point. And I made a joke once with a physician. I said, when are you all going to let me have a preventative mastectomy so I don't have to worry about this anymore? And the doctor at the time and the technician said, you have the same risk as anyone else. Don't worry about it. That's ridiculous. You don't need to do that. Well, Candace, sure enough, eventually my time came and I got that phone call, and I had a biopsy this time and it was breast cancer. And as you could imagine, it just turned my world upside down. It was the thing I had feared for 2 decades practically. And here it was in front of me, on my lap, in my ear, on my phone call. And I had to make some powerful choices. And it brought up all my grief from my mother. It brought up all of the fears that I had, kind of trying to avoid. And I decided to rewrite my own story and choose different paths than my mother did to hopefully have a different outcome. And so far, so good. But I think, breast cancer has been a part of my life now for many, many years. And I'm really glad I made some of the decisions that were different from my mother's. I use it as a way to honor her legacy and to honor kind of her journey. And I've also then made a commitment to share what I've learned with other women and try and make a change and a difference for them too.
So we make our decisions based on the information that we have at the time. And your mother made her choices based on the information that she had at the time. And you made your decisions and your choices based on watching what your mother did and making your own choices, which
Correct.
is why we so need to learn from our past.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so did you have a double mastectomy?
I did. I
Okay.
did.
So the doctors wouldn't let you do it. Did they have the BRCA test when you?
Yeah, I took the BRCA gene. I was BRCA negative. I didn't have the gene, nor did my mom, but I just, you know what? Talking about trusting yourself, I had this feeling. I just had this feeling that I was at a higher risk than most women. When I was diagnosed, because I had been under such scrutiny, they caught it early. I'll give it that. And I was given the chance, though, of having just a lumpectomy, which for those listeners that may not know, that's where they just take out the sort of the lump where the tumor is. Or I could have the more aggressive option, which was a double mastectomy. Now, my mother was exactly at this decision point, 25 years ago. she chose that lumpectomy, and it really was the reason that she relapsed so many times. And I'll never forget, weeks before she passed away, her medical file was extremely thick, and a new young surgeon came in and flipped through casually and said, "Well, that's interesting. If your mom had had a mastectomy years ago, she might not be in this situation today." You're like, "Oh, okay." So again, when it was my turn to make that same fork in the road decision, I chose the harder path, which is hard to do. The more aggressive option is to have a double mastectomy, but I saw it from a different lens because of what you just said. I had more information this time around and I learned from the past. I'm not a doctor and I can't recommend that for every other person, but I would say I want people to think about the long-term choices, fears, and mental, I guess, stability for the future.
So if I could do it all over again, I would have a double mastectomy. If I could
Mm,
do it all over again. I had a lumpectomy, and so this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We are talking
yep,
about boobs.
yep,
So I have a G cup on one side and a C cup on the other side. I cannot find a bra to fit me.
yeah,
I can't find a prosthetic to make them look even. I just wish that they were both gone. I really do.
yeah.
Because then you could just get a padded bra, or you could. I don't know if I would do reconstruction surgery. It was hard. All of it was hard, right? And
Oh, yeah.
you know, honestly, the idea of never having to wear a bra again is very appealing.
It is. It is. It is. I can attest to that.
So my sister was diagnosed with breast cancer maybe about 5 years before I was. Neither of us had the BRCA gene, and we had different types of cancer.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah. So my daughter just went to see a new gynecologist, and I went with her. You know, she's in her mid-20s. I went with her. I told the gynecologist about my history, and he told her to start getting mammograms at age 35, which is 10 years before I was diagnosed. So
Yeah.
it was really nice to hear those words come out of his mouth, because, I mean, women's health is secondary. Breast cancer is a different story because so many women have breast cancer. I mean, it's like 1 out of 5 women are diagnosed
Right.
with breast cancer. If you're in a room with 10 women, 2 of them have had breast cancer, right?
Agreed. Yeah.
I have a group coaching program, and is it 3 or 4? There are 3 or 4 of my clients have had breast cancer. I can't remember.
It's
I can't
frightening.
remember the number right off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And that's that's a much higher percentage in that small group. Where was I going with this story? Oh, anyway, so the screening process, I'm really glad that you started screening at 29, because you knew.
Yes,
I
I
mean, you
did.
knew. And I just, it irritates me when you said that they wouldn't do the double mastectomy, because Angela Jolie got one.
Oh, don't get me started. I love Angelina Jolie. That's how I got the idea.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I read her op-ed in the New York Times. Angelina, if you're listening, you saved my life. Thank you very much. And I thought, what a powerful, vulnerable thing to do, right? A celebrity using her influence and her voice to educate about women's health and about the choices you get to make about your body. Way to go, Angelina. Right? I mean, she did have that preventative mastectomy, and I'll tell you, I watch her in movies now, and you kinda look at her and you're like, "Really?" Because, she had the reconstruction. She looks great. She looks great. And she made a choice for her own body, and she chose to share it with the world. She totally inspired me, again, which is coming back to why I wrote the book. Thank you, Angelina.
So a friend of mine, Sharon, hi Sharon.
I
She was my best friend in high school, and she's now an RN. And when I was struggling, I mean, this is 11 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. However, it's been a long time. It's been a long time. I was really struggling with the whole thing about the breasts. And again, if I were to make the choice today, I would have a double mastectomy. But then I was really
Yeah,
struggling, and she goes,
yeah,
and she says to me, "It's just a little bit of fat." And it was a perspective change. It was
absolutely.
really a perspective change.
Yep.
But I'd also had belonged to a group, like a breast cancer support group on Facebook, where several women had talked about how their husbands left them after
Oh,
they had their mastectomies. And I was like, well, that husband isn't worth your,
yeah, exactly. That's
that
not
was
the
a
right person
relationship.
for you.
That was a relationship that needed to end if he couldn't get past you not having a boob, right?
Exactly.
You
Right? I
know?
mean, that's a red flag right there, and you probably made the right decision anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it that you do for your career?
So I work in nonprofit. I do fundraising for a food bank here in Minneapolis called Second Harvest Heartland.
Oh, you're in Minneapolis. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. Talk about, a reset of gratitude. I'm grateful that my children are happy and healthy right now. My children are safe. I'm grateful for first responders. And I'm grateful, I'm trying to reframe for gratitude that perhaps there's change coming for this country to uh, make it significant and meaningful improvements to gun safety laws and to gun, just nobody should have one. Sorry if I'm being
Yeah.
controversial.
This episode is being recorded 2 days after the Catholic school shooting in Minneapolis. So I'd like to give you a little bit of hope. I have a very good friend who lives in Oxford, Michigan, where they had a school shooting several years ago. And she says she told me like a year ago or so that her community has really changed,
Really?
but it's changed for the better.
Yeah, I believe that. I mean, it has rocked our community. My kids are around the same age as those that were lost. Sorry. And, our school went on lockdown. It's probably about 4 miles, 5 miles from where that shooting occurred. And all I can say is just the ripple through the community has been significant. And I can only hope for healing, hope, change, and reconciliation and support for mental health, support for gun control laws, changes, and a changed community ahead. Thank you.
Ooh, okay. Hard to reset after that.
I know. I know. I know.
You never
Yeah.
know where these conversations are going to go. Okay, so you were just very vulnerable about something tragic that just happened, and you were vulnerable when you were dealing with your diagnosis and your choices that you made, and you've written this book. You know what? Let's pivot to the book because that will just change the dynamic. So tell me about your book.
Yeah. So what happened to me, vulnerability is a superpower too, right? I think gratitude can change your life, and so can vulnerability. So, when I was diagnosed and I'd made the decision to have that double mastectomy, I had to, I had to tell my work team, right? I was going to be gone for several weeks. So in the meeting, I tearfully tell the team I've had breast cancer. I'm going to have a mastectomy. Afterwards, this woman that I barely know. She's new to the team. She's a consultant. I probably had one conversation with her briefly up until that point, and she pulls me aside and she leans in and she says, "I have had a double mastectomy too." And then she says, "Do you want to see my breasts?" I was like, "Ooh, okay, so I don't know you. We're at work. I've got to stay professional, but yes, I do. Yes, I do." And so we found a bathroom off the beaten path, locked the door, and she takes off her shirt. She's had a mastectomy and breast reconstruction. And let me tell you, Candace, her breasts look so real and her scars were so faint. I mean, I'm looking at like, are you sure you've had the surgery and the reconstruction? Looked so real. And it gave me so much peace and comfort because I could see what my future would look like. I knew that it was not going to be an easy surgery. I knew this is not what I was going to look like, day of, but I could see what I would look like in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. She'd been 5 years out. And it was this incredibly powerful experience that just absolutely grounded and changed me. What vulnerability from this woman. I mean, she didn't have to do that. And after my surgery and after I became part of the club that's on the other side, I'd get these phone calls from other people that said, "Hey, my neighbor's diagnosed. Will you talk to her?" Or "My sister's been diagnosed. Can you have coffee with her?" And of course, yes. So I find myself not only sharing my story, but sharing pictures with like strangers and friends of friends. And I loved it. But I thought, you know what? I'm doing this one at a time and I need to scale this and let me be vulnerable. Let me show other women what it's really like. So I have in this book photos, like legit before, during, and after of my chest and my breasts today. And then like right after the surgery, because you want to know what you're facing. So there's pictures in it. Also, I actually talk about journals. I typed up a lot of my journal entries. So the emotional vulnerability that I'm going to expose women to is like, it's real and you are not alone. Because you know this, Candace, your mind, it becomes a mind game. It's a physical game of health and recovery, it is a mind game. And I wanted to let women into that as well. So it is extremely vulnerable book, both again through photos and through journal entries. And it's really short. So you can read it in about an hour because the one thing that a woman newly diagnosed does not have? She does not have a lot of time. So, here you can see it. This is the hardcover version. It's about the size of
It's
your
small. Yeah.
It's small. It's about the size of your hand and really thin. Lots of pictures in there. I won't show any on your, on your show per se, but and newly diagnosed women have found it so helpful. So I really, really want to say, if you know somebody newly diagnosed, please look it up. Please get it. Please reach out. I'll send it to you for free. Like, seriously, my vision is to support more women and to get it out into community and support as many people as possible.
Well, I am in breast cancer treatment for the rest of my life, and I'm going to see the oncologist today. If you would like to send me a
Yes,
couple dozen copies, I'd be happy
I would
to
absolutely.
distribute them for you through the
Yep,
Cancer Center.
you bet. You bet, Candace. We'll go offline. I'll get your address.
Okay, perfect. When I was first diagnosed, I was given a book called Radical Remission by Kelly Turner. Have you read this book?
No, but it is on my list. I have heard about it.
I believe that it's been newly updated, so my version is, more than 10 years old. But that book gave me permission to fight.
Yeah.
I mean, and it gave me ideas and things that I could do that would complement what the doctor was doing. And none of it is horse dewormer. None of the ideas in the book are horse dewormer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's nutrition and oxygen. I mean, one of the tips is to get up early in the morning and go outside and breathe,
Yeah.
because
I believe that.
the oxygen level in the air is higher in the morning. So that was one of the ideas in the book,
I'm going to start that tomorrow.
So it's all very practical. So when the birds are singing, that means the oxygen in the air is a little higher. Yeah.
Not
It's
beautiful.
just, and the reason why you need more oxygen is because your blood cells, they take the oxygen and they distribute them through the body. And when your blood cells have oxygen, there's no room for sugar. Audience, if you have a friend who's just been diagnosed with breast cancer, those two books together are a great gift. Bring their family some food because they're not going to want to eat, and those two books.
Yeah. And mine also has practical tips on how to prepare for a mastectomy. It is it's a game changer for women if that's a choice that you're considering and in your solution set. I highly, again, I'm slightly biased, but you can look on Amazon. It does have reviews, and my favorite are the ones where, like, I don't know the person, right? Like, and that says that it changed their life. That's how I put my head on the pillow every night.
That's the whole point of sharing your story, is to change a life. And when you change the life of someone you don't know, that's even better. It's even better. That's one of the reasons why I have been so open with all of this from the beginning. Well, because that's the way I heal. Talking is how I heal. But yeah, from the very beginning, I've just been very open book. Open book. There are some things that I hold close because,
Sure.
but I'm very vulnerable and willing to share.
Yeah.
So let's talk about connecting people through vulnerability as they face cancer.
Yeah. I mean, I think you said it earlier, is when you are vulnerable in these spaces, it gives another person permission to be vulnerable as well, right? I mean, it gives people permission to do other things, to find hope in that vulnerability, to find purpose, or to find, again, healing in that vulnerability. I think deep down, we all want to be seen and heard. I think that's a fundamental human value. Through vulnerability is the best way to do that. We are all imperfect, and we are all just doing our best. And, I think social media has changed that. You see everyone's best day, everyone's best life, even their best moments. They don't see when you wake up and, you have a stomach ache or your hair is a mess, all the things. And I think vulnerability is what connects people. So to your point, is connection.
Just shaved my hair a little bit ago because I have my hair. I mean, it's 11 years of cancer treatment. My hair is terrible, but I had let it grow a couple inches long. Every time morning I would wake up, my hair would be standing on end. And then my cousin sent me a picture of me when I was a baby and my hair is standing on end. I was like, oh, well, I haven't changed.
There you go. It's still me.
I still look exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. So let's talk about the work that you do with the nonprofit, because I love when people choose nonprofit as their career.
Mhm.
So talk to me about what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually what's interesting is that I've not been in nonprofit my whole life. And I'll tell you kind of the little bit of the journey. My undergraduate degree is in accounting. My first job was in public accounting and I was absolutely miserable. Miserable beyond belief. And my mother at the time, uh I'd call her every night and cry and talked about how sad and disappointed I was in my job. And she was like, okay, great. A pity party is over. Now, the best way to solve your own problems is to help somebody out of theirs. So go out and volunteer. And I was like, my mom was a very wise woman. So I was like, okay. And I tried on a lot of different stuff. I volunteered as a Girl Scout troop leader, cleaned up, trash on the side of a river. I did all sorts of volunteer stuff. But the one that like sat so deeply in my body and bones and heart was I started volunteering for a summer camp for children with cancer. And I remember sitting in the volunteer orientation session in the back of the room and looking at the leader who was fundraising and nonprofit executive. And I was like, I want to be like that guy someday. And, I had no path at the time. I was an accountant at the time in a miserable job, but I made choices and decisions. And I was in the corporate world for 20 years, but I held on to that vision. And then I did, after my mom passed away, I thought, you know what? There is no time like now. And there is no higher purpose than helping others. And what doesn't matter in this world is, all the other stuff that comes with a corporate job. So I made the switch to nonprofit and I've loved it ever since. And so, it really took not only a vision, but those experiences with kids with cancer. I mean, life changing. Talk about trying to find gratitude in your life. There is nothing more grounding and gives you more gratitude and takes away all your other problems than spending a week with a child battling cancer at a summer camp. Transformational experiences that I had. And so now I've dedicated my life and my career to the nonprofit space. I do fundraising for food banking to support getting food in our communities for those who simply can't afford it. And I find that humbling. I recently volunteered at a food shelf, and again, the amount of gratitude I have for my own choices, but also the amount of compassion I have for others who are in those situations by no fault of their own. I'm just really moved, and I love the work.
When my husband and I first got married, struggled for the first couple of years, and we found out we were pregnant like 2 months after we got married.
Wow.
So we got married, we bought a house, we started a business, all that within 6 months or something. It was crazy. So the I'm gonna say that my daughter was coming up on 1. It was November of her first year. It might have been her second year, but I think it was her first year. And we just we were struggling. We had no money coming in. We were really working hard to try to make this work, and nothing was happening. And so I went to the food bank and I had my daughter with me. I was embarrassed because I never in a million years imagined that I'd ever be asking anyone for food.
Yeah.
And they said, technically you really don't qualify, but we're going
Mm.
to give you the food anyway. And then when business got really good, we repaid that food bank
Yeah.
in probably 20-fold. 20-fold. We would buy an entire thing of cans and dump it in the food bank's collecting thing at the grocery store.
Yeah.
I mean, we would just refill their bucket as much as we possibly could when things were great, were good for us, because I was so embarrassed and so
Mm.
humbled to go into that space and to ask for something, but I had a kid that needed to be fed. And
Yeah.
if I did not have a daughter, my husband and I would have survived on rice and beans, right? We would have made that work. But we had a kid and she needed food, right? And so, yeah, I mean, the work that you do is so important because you just don't know when it's going to happen to you.
Absolutely. There's this display in our office, and it's sort of like, food insecurity. And, it's very hard to ask for help, but it could come in so unexpectedly and it's not always consistent. Like you just said, you needed a little bit of help, but this display has like two levers or two almost like wheels of fortune or wheels of misfortune. One is like if you had, you know, a car accident and you had a sick kid, like that can strip away your funds and you might just need a little bit of help. Or you might have a layoff and you might have, a parent who just recently fell and needs more hospitalization. Like it's really, it can happen in such quick ways. It's again, by no fault of your own, hard circumstances, and it's not forever. And we get to make it easy for people to ask for help, to receive help with dignity. And also, I loved, Candace, what you just talked about was you paid it forward, right? You needed help and you received it. And then you went and reached behind you and helped somebody else when you had a different situation. Absolutely beautiful and inspirational. And I hear that story often. Thank you.
So I once read a statistic that the average family that goes to a food bank actually makes like $80,000 a year, but their expenses are far more than their income. That it anybody could be in this situation. So compassion is so important. I interviewed recently a woman who survived. Lydia Knight is her name. She survived and overcame being raised in a cult. And
Wow.
she said that the way to move past a cult, to move past anything, is curiosity.
Mm.
And so the way that you overcome breast cancer, let's try to see if that works. Does it work?
Oh, let's see.
Does it work? It worked for you, but not for me. How weird. Okay.
Wait, I think it's like the bursting out, maybe? I don't know. How does it work?
It works for you. I don't know. Anyway, audience, if you're listening to the show, Erica is making hearts on her screen, but I can't seem to make hearts on mine. So there's something going on.
There's something going on there.
With Riverside where we record. Okay. Where was my question? Okay. So curiosity. Curiosity is how you move past being in a cult. Curiosity is how you move. Curiosity will help you overcome breast cancer because if you're curious about alternatives to make you feel better, like some of the things that I did when I was going through the really bad chemo, that second round of chemo that almost killed me, was I went and got acupuncture done. There's use of, to this day I have aromatherapy because it doesn't cure cancer, but it calms you down, or it lifts you up, or it clears your sinuses, all helps you breathe better, all sorts of things that go on when you have side effects, right? Doesn't cure cancer, but it helps with the side effects, right? So important to differentiate between it's a complementary therapy that helps with symptoms, then I don't need to do chemo because I can cure myself with this, right? You can't cure yourself of cancer with coffee enemas, but if they make you feel better, do it. Right?
Go for it.
You know?
Exactly. Exactly.
So anyway, curiosity is also what's going to help us move past the school shootings. Once we as a society can become curious about alternatives to, the way things are going the way they are now, we become more curious. Okay, why is this happening? Instead of, and I'm sorry to bring it back to the shooting, but it just happened
That's all
2
right.
days ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of being adamant and stuck in our ways, if we could just be open and curious about other possibilities. And that's true for everything. And curiosity will lead to, the only reason we have any of the cancer meds that exist today is because there were doctors and researchers who were curious.
100%. I think curiosity is one of the greatest life values that probably is not talked about as much. Obviously, we're talking about gratitude, we're talking about vulnerability. I love that you raised curiosity up until the top three. And I do believe that's where change happens. And it's curiosity about yourself, curiosity about your care, curiosity about your community, curiosity about, again, gun control law changes, curiosity about mental health, curiosity about treatment options, all of the things. You can really apply that to anything.
Yeah, and the curiosity will lead to root causes. And when you can address the root causes, things just shift. At one point, women couldn't vote. And then women became curious. What would happen if we did vote? And so then they fought for it. And now women can vote. And as long as women stay curious and fight for it, we will continue to vote.
Yes. Amen, sister. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about balance. So how do you balance those super hard moments? And you had some super hard moments and super hard choices with gratitude.
That is a Fantastic question. How do I balance gratitude in hard moments? You might laugh through the power of choice. And what I mean by that is, right after my surgery, my double mastectomy, it was not comfortable. And I wouldn't say that I was overflowing with gratitude, right? Let's just be completely transparent. And about 4 or 5 days later, that's when you're starting to come out of the fog a little bit. I was pretty down. I was in pain and struggling and all those things. And again, it was like that I could choose. I was like so tired of myself by that point of like sitting in my pity party. And it was hard for me to pull myself out, right? But I had to choose. And I couldn't choose it all the time. But there were times I was like, okay, I am so sick of being sad and being woe is me. Let me put on some music. You asked me a question about what is a song that, is an uplifter. And so I would choose to put on, and I made it like a playlist of songs that would change my mood. And that was a choice. And I could get into that gratitude space. I could get further away from my self-pity party and the self-beat up. And if I could choose that for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, to your point, maybe the next day I could choose it for 12 minutes or 15 minutes. And the further I got from the surgery and the more I made the choice to try and change my own attitude, the better I got, right? And it was incremental, and it wasn't always linear either. I think I want to just give women and anybody listening grace that these changes that you make and the balance that you're trying to achieve, it's never really balanced, let's be honest. But you can get a little bit better every day. And you can also step back. There was days I had, 2 steps forward, 1 back. And it was about grace. And so the balance comes, if you choose it, or you choose to start towards it. And balance and time. Time is an incredible healer as well.
Mm-hmm. And time moves so quickly these days. It really does.
Yes. Yeah.
So something that I started doing recently, my least favorite chore is doing the dishes. I hate doing the dishes. And when I was 12 or 13, I made myself a mixtape. So this was, I'm going to say 82, 83, so early 80s. And that mixtape had the Flirts. And
I love it.
I think it might have been too early for the Go-Go's. But really upbeat, happy music, that early new wave from the early 80s. And my dad called it my dishwashing music mixtape. And so I created a Spotify playlist for my dishwashing music mixtape. You know what? I'm going to share that. I am going to share that mixtape in the show notes because you can share Spotify playlists. I'm going to share that playlist.
Absolutely should
share
do
that
this.
playlist in the show notes. But it's my dishwashing music. I put on the music and I can wash the dishes and I dance. I'm dancing and washing dishes, right?
Yeah.
And that takes something that I do not enjoy doing at all, and I never enjoyed doing because obviously I had to make this mixtape for myself when I was 13.
Yeah.
But it makes doing it fun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That's a way to balance it.
Yes, absolutely. And what I'm hearing that is the power of choice. And let me tell you a quick story. Actually, there's a blog about this on my website, another shameless plug for my website. But, recently I was sitting in my kitchen and my refrigerator starts beeping, right? And it's like this loud, annoying beep, beep, beep. And of course, what happens, our fridge was broken and it would beep every time that it would indicate that the freezer wasn't working. So this alarm would go off. Then after that, like random times, unexpectedly, all you had to do was like reset it. Of course, we needed to get a new fridge, but I didn't want to do that. I was putting it off and it was driving me bonkers. Like I would go ballistic every time this alarm went off. And then my son said, "Well, Mom, what if we changed it?" I'm like, "What do you mean we changed it? Like, I can't afford a new fridge right now." He's like, "Well, what if you reframed and said, every time the alarm goes off, it's not about the freezer. It's that somebody in the world is thinking about you and loves you." And I was like,
gosh, how old was your son when he came up with that idea?
like 11.
My God, this is why we need to listen and pay attention to our kids.
Right. And then after that, every time the alarm went off, nothing else changed. Same alarm, same loud noise, same randomness, same unpredictability. Every time the alarm went off, I'd be like, "Oh, that's so nice." A totally different experience only by a child's advice, but the choice I made in my mind to reframe it. That one stands with me. Like you're saying, now maybe you love dishwashing because you're listening to the Spotify playlist, right? It's like how much you choose in your mind. It was just this, nothing else changed externally except how I felt about it and what I was choosing to put balance in my life. So I actually eventually we had to replace our fridge. We tried to get it fixed and, it didn't work. I kind of missed the alarm once I got a new fridge. Isn't that hilarious?
That is hilarious. So I have an alarm on my phone. It's 10:09, and I have 8 things that I do at 10:09 p.m. I take my pills, take 3 deep breaths. And I do my moments of gratitude. I mean, I don't have a gratitude journal because I actually probably should. I should write it down because it won't take any longer than it already does. But, I think of 3 things I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
But I call it my 10-9-8 practice. But that alarm is a reset.
Yep.
That alarm is like, okay, it's time to stop what you're doing, take care of, do a little, and it takes less than 5 minutes.
Exactly. Isn't that, I hope your listeners are taking away these little nuggets of how you can make powerful change in small ways that don't require much time, no money, and can be life-changing.
Yep. Okay. Audience, if you are enjoying this conversation and you want more conversations like this, please sign up for my email list. It's at CandiceRedarty.com/subscribe. Throughout October, we will have 4 podcast episodes around breast cancer and 5 roundup blog posts where I pull in conversations I've had over the last 10 years with amazing guests about things that are breast cancer related and adjacent. And it is a jam-packed full of really good stuff. And if you want to go back into the archives, September was all about self-care and August was all about mindset. So you can go through the archives and you can find really good content to help you wherever you are in your solopreneur journey. All right. Erica Neubert Campbell, this is your moment of gratitude. What's one unexpected thing breast cancer gave you that you're truly grateful for?
It gave me a community of women that have become lifelong friends, that we have shared the same diagnosis. So now I have a group of women that have all had breast cancer or double mastectomy, and I love them. And we call ourselves the Horseshoe Breasties. Oh, Horseshoe I stole from one of our favorite podcasters, Glenn Doyle Melton, I think. And she talks about a horseshoe where it's not a circle where it's closed and we don't let anybody in and we don't let anybody out, but that a horseshoe is open. And as women we know are newly diagnosed, we invite them into our horseshoe and into our circle. And so I have this community of women that I get to spend time with, and I'm so grateful. I am so grateful for them. I'm not grateful, again, that we all have the same diagnosis, but I'm so grateful we're in it together. I love the women I've met, not just those horseshoe breasties. So shout out to my horseshoe breasty women, but so many women I have got to reconnect with. I reconnected with friends from high school who needed my book. I reconnected with people from college who needed to hear this book. I have been so grateful to be able to walk beside other women that I knew in my past or I have met for my future.
Thanks for tuning in to Gratitude Geek, the podcast for women solopreneurs over 40, building genuine, lasting connection with clients, colleagues, and community, and who know that gratitude is a business strategy. Our theme music is by Rev Brock and Soul Lily. I've been your host, Candice Redarty. Stay groovy, my friends.
Stay groovy, my friends.